You're listening to This Week in America with Rick Bratton.
Welcome back, everybody. This Week in America. Thank you for joining us on the program. Our guest, Dr. Dorothy M. Leveque, enjoyed a 38-year career in education in the United States, working as an educator as well as an administrator in a variety of settings. She is currently the president and CEO of Pathways Africa, a small nonprofit organization based in Claremont, California, which empowers and assists the people of Africa through the mutual development of sustainable resources for community planning, education, and health services. She also started a literacy program called Pathways to African Literacy, that's PAL, which raises funds to purchase textbooks for African schools and provides assistance for the establishment of school gardens and feeding programs. As a former member of the Ontario Rotary Club in California and an honorary member of the Newlands Rotary Club of Cape Town, South Africa, she was also successful in helping secure funding for 2 literacy grants in Cape Town, South Africa. Her new book is Journey of Hope, 16 Days in Tanzania. Joining us on the program, the author, Dr. Dorothy Leveque. Her new book is Journey of Hope, 16 Days in Tanzania. Dr. Dorothy Leveque with us on This Week in America. Dr. Leveque, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much.
The book is fascinating, Journey of Hope, 16 Days in Tanzania. And let's go back and talk about where this whole love affair with South Africa began. This is back to, 2001 when this all began for you. An interesting experience, and it shaped your life, didn't it?
It did. It truly did, because my mother had always wanted to go to Africa, and she never was able to. And it was just in the back of my mind. And a friend of mine who I was her supervisor in the school district called me up one day, and she and her husband took groups on safari. And she said, "Dottie, you have to go. This is it. You must go." And so I did. And we went to Southern Africa, several countries in Southern Africa. And I just fell in love. I mean, the people are incredible. The countries are beautiful. There's so much need, as you know, but you feel empowered to do something rather than whine and feel sorry and all this kind of thing. And that's what happened to me. So I went, did the safari, went home. This was July 2001. So December 2001, right after 9/11, I flew back, and with the person who had been our safari guide, found a house near Cape Town and purchased it. My family thought I had gone berserk.
And you say that you're one that's very cautious. You don't usually jump into things, but you bought a house like basically right out of the chute. So you really were moved by what you saw over there and wanted to be part of it.
I did, and I started by assisting the person who had led our safaris, our 2001 safari. Worked with him for several years, and I'd organize the people and the money, and he would organize what the trip would look like, and then together we'd take groups on safari. I loved that too, because animals and being out in the boonies and all that's me, even though I live in Southern California. And so did that for several years, but the educator in me and the wanting to help people in need just took over. And so I quit the safari thing in, I don't remember what year now, and then I started with a very small nonprofit called Kid Care International and volunteered with them, and then decided it was time to branch out. And so went out with a group of friends, 4 trusted friends, and we established Pathways Africa.
Yeah, it's interesting, and in the book, Journey of Hope, 16 Days in Tanzania, this is a diary of the 16 days, and we'll talk about how that all came about in a few minutes on the program. Dr. Dorothy Marion Leveque with us on the program. The website is very simple, Dr. Dottie Leveque, that's LEVEQUE.com. If you go to our website, thisweekinamerica.us, you can actually link on directly to the website and get the information. When did this actually start in your mind that I think I can help these people. I mean, you basically fell in love with the people, and you talk about the fact the media portrayal of how we see, especially children in Africa, really is incorrect. And there was something that really touched you about these people, where as an educator, you really wanted to work with them.
I did. And if you look at my career, this is not an unusual step. I worked for probably one of the best school districts, in my opinion anyway, in the U.S., in Minnesota. That's where I started my career. It was wonderful. Everything I believed in happened in that district. But I took a mission trip during the summer after my first year of teaching to the Navajo reservation and worked with people there. And it was another case of like, oh my, there are needs here. I know I can help. So I taught my second year in Minnesota, then resigned and went to work for the Bureau of Indian Affairs. So that just seems to happen. I see need. I know I can help in some way. And so I jump out there and do whatever I can.
In talking about what you saw in Africa, you described it as the country has a long history of power over. Talk about that. It gives us some good background, some good a good foundation for what is happening there. A long history of basically being overrun by other nations.
Yes, because there's a lot of mineral wealth. There are areas where the land is very fertile, so you can grow things and so on. And it all started, as I'm sure you know, back like in the 1400s, where the Portuguese were sailing, trying to find a new route to the new world, if you will. And along the way, other groups followed: the Dutch, the British, you name it, the Germans, and they found a place where they felt they could do something for themselves, mind you.
Yes.
And the people were very pleasant and so on. So there was no fear of great war because, of course, the invaders, I'll call them invaders, had weapons that the local people had never seen before, had never even imagined. And so it was very easy to subdue them and to control them. Now, this was a long time ago. Okay, so when I'm talking about the Brits and the Germans and so on, we won't talk about them as vicious, nasty people who came in and took over.
Exactly. And you say in the book, opportunistic nations have taken advantage of passively humble people. And as
Yes.
I'm reading that, I see this great people and we'll talk about some of the heroes over there. These are really, really solid people, but humble people, and they were taken advantage of it. As you're reading that, it's like, this isn't right. And you really tried and continuing to try to do something to reverse that.
Yes, and as an educator, I feel that if people have an opportunity to improve their lives through education, to learn more, that's the only way to really survive in the modern world. If you can't read, write, and compute, and all the other things that go with education, it's very difficult to move forward. You're always going to be controlled by countries, people, governments that are more powerful than you are.
You're listening to This Week in America. Our guest on the program today is Dr. Dottie Leveque. She is the author of the book Journey of Hope, 16 Days in Tanzania. The book is available all across the country. Information at her website, Dr. Dottie Leveque, and that's LEVEQUE.com. Information at our website. You can link on directly to her website by going to thisweekinamerica.us. And you're saying that one of the keys is so many people would go and they would bring gifts rather than tools. Talk about that, because as I'm reading, these are people who really want to have the tools necessary to make life better for them.
Yes, Yes, and this is a difficult thing because within pathways, my colleagues are big on bringing gifts, and I'm a good gift giver myself, but that doesn't bring about change because when the gift is used up, there's nothing left. And so I feel strongly that in order for countries in Africa or anywhere else where people are living in abject poverty, there must be a move to help them learn and improve their lives themselves. And I used to do strategic planning in school districts where I was an administrator. And so whenever I would go to a school or an organization or whatever in Africa, we'd have a little meeting and we'd sit down and in essence do a mini strategic planning. Because the question is kind of like schools, if you had what you needed, the training that you need, the equipment you need, et cetera, what would your school look like and what are the outcomes that you want? And just engaging in that dialogue and writing down what it is they think they really need and want. I was always amazed. You'd go home and come back the next year and things that they had talked about, they had figured out how to do. And they didn't need me. Yes, money's great and we could provide additional things that they needed or help them make connections to get them through grant writing, et cetera. But they knew. And that to me was the most valuable gift I could give them, was helping them put into words and writing what they really wanted, because then they go for it. They just absolutely go for it because they're so used to waiting for the presents. What did you bring me this time, kind of thing. And by the next time you come, whatever you gave them was long gone, So it didn't make a change.
Yes, the tools and the education will be there long after the gifts are lost or gone, spent, or whatever. In July of 2011, you spent 16 days in Tanzania. The name of the book, Journey of Hope, 16 Days in Tanzania. Talk about that, because I don't want to say the book almost wrote itself, but you did a daily diary, and what the flow was just there. It was almost like another force was saying, you really need to write this book.
Yes. When I came home, well, not home, to my home in Hout Bay, it just haunted me because I'd written little notes each day about what we had done and thoughts and so on. And I thought, you can write. Let's sit down and do this thing. And so I didn't want to try and do it all in one day, So I set up a schedule for myself that I would do one day a day and just sit down and write it. And then I got a few days into it and I thought, I need some input. I might be out in la la land here. So I sent it out to 25 friends and family members as a blog or an email, whatever, and got very positive responses. So it encouraged me to keep going. And then it sat because it's like, I can't really write a book and have it published. I know I do dissertations and theses and all that, but no, I can't write a book. And so I just fussed. Well, fortunately, I met this incredible person, Andre Seltzer, and he pushed the daylights out of me to get this book written. And so finally I just said, I'm doing it, and wrote it through CreateSpace and self-published. And then by some miracle, Brian Ellis from Book World picked it up and called me and he said, we want to work with you on your book. And I'm like, really? So that's where we are.
It's a very important book. It's called Journey of Hope, 16 Days in Tanzania. With us, the author, Dr. Dorothy Marion Leveque, with us on This Week in America. The book is available all across the country. Information available at her website, and you can link on directly by going to our website, thisweekinamerica.us. It's interesting in reading the book, and you say that you had many trips over there, and each time you came back from a trip, it changed you. Talk a little bit about what the book has done for you in changing your outlook. And we're dealing with these issues now where we're dealing with people that are different than us. And you talk a lot about that in the book.
Yeah. And different is not necessarily the word I would use, because people are truly people. And I think what all of my travels to Africa have taught me is just that. We're all the same under the skin. We all want the same kinds of things for ourselves, for our family, for our children. And that was probably one of the biggest things. But then I began to look at how we as Americans live. And one of the things that, and I have a lot of stuff, so I have to say that up front, but we are users
Exactly.
of everything,
yes.
know, just very much so. You look at children now, they have more toys than Santa Claus ever dreamt of bringing them,
Yes.
And it just goes on. And we're wasteful. We throw things away constantly. The oceans are full of our junk. And you look, on the other hand, at the simple lives of the African people. And no, we don't want to live that simply, But it's so important that we see the world as a whole and not just us. That, how do I want to say this? There's enough in the world for everyone to have what they need. And to go too far beyond that is just flat out wasteful, in my opinion. I always go back to George Carlin. I love George Carlin. And we rent space for all of our stuff, as he would
Yes.
put it. Yeah, and I think we need to stop a bit and rethink how we live. And especially now, the upcoming generation, there's a tremendous amount of good energy, but there's also a tremendous amount of user energy. And we need to look at that and see how we can help young people and how young people can help themselves become more sensitive to the people around them and to the people around the world.
And that's why the book Journey of Hope, 16 Days in Tanzania is such an inspiration. A couple minutes left in the program. You talk a lot about the heroes. And I take one, Bertha, for example, that we follow in the book. And so many of the people that you dealt with, so many of the situations that you dealt with are having very positive outcomes. Talk about Bertha briefly, and then what that feeling is like that you put in this effort, you put in the time, you come up with the ideas, you're trying to educate, and you're actually seeing results. Yes,
Bertha is a star. She's an absolute star. I first met Bertha at Leveque Secondary Boarding School, where she was a student. And she was in, it would have been Form 4, which would be like 7th grade, I think. Don't quote me on that. Old age is a terrible thing. I carry my driver's license so I don't forget who I am. But anyway, Bertha was always this beautiful, open, loving, caring person. And so some friends of mine agreed to pay her tuition. So her tuition has been paid all the way through college now. She graduated from the School of Accountancy in Arusha, Tanzania, and she's looking to new horizons. And she's still the same beautiful, wonderful woman that she was when I first met her as a 7th grader.
It's an amazing story, an uplifting story. That's the story of Bertha. You'll also read in the book other heroes and find out a water well that you were responsible for getting done is there and functioning, work being done at a charitable hospital.
Yeah.
So many positive things going on that came out of your 16 days in Tanzania, plus all the time you've spent over there, and all the effort in organizing and actually seeing tangible results. The book is Journey of Hope, 16 Days in Tanzania. I'm going to take another minute or two here at the end. You end up with 6 little life lessons at the end of the book. Give us maybe one of those that we could all sort of take away, sort of a take away from the book and take away from our conversation today.
I talked about too much stuff. Let me think of another one that would be good. I'm going to look real quickly because
Well, yeah, and the stuff is very important, and that says a lot, because as you're reading through that, it's like, yeah, do I really need all of that? I'm reading a news story a couple days ago. I think it was like 75% of us made impulse purchases over the holiday season, and that's sort of like, okay, is that something that we actually really need? If it was impulsive, we didn't give it a whole lot of thought. Information is in the book Journey of Hope, 16 Days in Tanzania. Our guest on the program, Dr. Dorothy Marion Leveque. The book is available all across the country. We'll close with one of her thoughts here in a second. I'll give you the information on the book. It's available, as I say, all around the country by going to our website, thisweekinamerica.us. You can link on directly. And Dr. Dottie's website is very simple, Dr. Dottie Leveque, LEVEQUE.com, and get information there as well. A final thought for us before we end here.
Okay. One of the places I work with in South Africa is called Learn to Earn, and it's an adult education program. And the motto is give a hand up, not a hand out. And that's what really works. It kind of goes back to that gift thing. It's more important that you assist people in achieving the goals that they identify. Give them a hand up along the way, but don't make dependence out of them, because they don't want to be dependent. They'll receive your gifts, they'll smile, they'll be happy, they'll thank you, but that's not what it's about. It's helping them realize their dreams by giving them a hand up, but not a hand out.
The book is Journey of Hope, 16 Days in Tanzania. Our guest on the program, the author, Dr. Dorothy Marion Leveque. The book is available all across the country, again, at the doctor's website, and you can link on directly by going to our website, thisweekinamerica.us. A pleasure to have you on the program. An interesting read, again, a very inspirational read. You were to be congratulated for all that you've done, and I really appreciate you being with us on the program today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Once again, the name of the book, Journey of Hope, 16 Days in Tanzania. You can get all the information and log on directly by going to our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Stay tuned. We're back after these messages.